Today, I am here with Kate Moore, a psychic somatic coach with a very successful business here in Portland, Maine, who's here to talk about her journey from a religious upbringing into her own authentic spirituality. So first, Kate, thank you for being here. Welcome.
Thank you.
Can you share with us first about what you do as a psychic somatic coach?
Yeah, it's kind of a newer phrase. So I went through a year-long somatic trauma training. The somatic piece is this interesting addition that I've kind of combined in with the psychic, energetic coaching work. So it's a lot of guidance work, energy healing, and then I'm combining the body with that now.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to hear about your story, how you landed doing all of this amazing alternative healthcare kind of work with people. So why don't we just take our time and you can lay the picture of your life and how you grew up and what that was like for you.
Yeah. And I'll just say caveat, which I shared with you before this, like this really interesting nuance of honoring where I came from and what has shaped me up till this point, and also speaking my experience within it. So it's an interesting journey. And like I've told you, this is the first time I've really shared it all in one. On a public platform. So for those who get to hear and listen to this special share. So I grew up on the coast of Maine. My parents actually still live in my childhood home. So that is like a very grounding space for me. I've only lived in one home growing up. And my parents are church planters. So my mom is a retired attorney. She's a badass. And she kind of funded the church work. Like she was the breadwinner, and then my dad was the pastor, and they both worked within the church. So I grew up as a pastor's kid in an evangelical Christian home, pretty conservative, I would say.
And you grew up and that was all you knew. That was your exposure.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, full on. There was no other exposure.
So you were a child there, and then you went to school. You became an adult.
Yeah, school was interesting though. I went to private Christian school in New Hampshire for 8 years. Wow. And then my parents were like, nope, your brother got corrupted there, so we're creating our own school in the church basement.
Oh my gosh.
For high school.
Wow.
Which I was kind of forced into going to. Pretty non-traditional.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd say so.
Yes.
Okay. Then what, college rolls around?
I had a very special woman in my life who was not family, but kind of, who was trained at Moody Bible Institute in downtown Chicago. When I thought of college, there really wasn't any other option for me other than that school. It was just strict. You signed like a 4-year, regardless of age, no alcohol during the 4 years, just intense.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So you went there?
I went there, got in, moved as a baby 18-year-old into downtown Chicago, and did 4 years of theological study. Basically, my degree was missionary work, like evangelism and discipleship was what it was called. So basically training to proselytize, like to bring people to Christ across cultures.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you enjoyed?
No, I hated college.
Okay.
I hated college just because it was lonely and I was away from my family in a like super urban space. I was used to the woods of Maine. But also just I was so serious. Like as an 18-year-old, like going to this like training school where we're all there for a reason and you can't mess around. And that's who I was as a pastor's kid. Like it was always like all eyes on Kate, she's the good girl, she's the leader. So I was an RA, I formed a student group, like just massive overachiever. So I didn't really have any fun, I would say.
Where did the thoughts even begin of kind of like questioning how you were raised, and like how did that conversation go in your head, or was it kind of like in an inkling or like a twinkle?
A twinkle. I love that. I'm going to start calling it that. So I would say it started actually my senior year of college. I had a total breakdown. My body just shut down. I can't explain it. Like my therapist that I had at the time said, like, that's burnout. Like where your body just shut off. Like I couldn't speak. Like all my systems were a no-go. After experiencing that, I was like, wait a minute, like, this isn't sustainable. And like, this life of being the good girl and or like the savior, I guess, isn't working. And I don't really want it. And so I had some really great mentors because I was an RA, so we had to be in therapy, which was interesting. And I actually really love that. But my boss as an RA was really a pivotal person in this time of me deconstructing. Like God doesn't just want your happy, good Christian things. Like the darkness is where we find it. And that is still like one of the main tenets of my work and my existence. And so that really started there, where I was like, wait a minute, no, like, no, Mom, like, you don't have to be afraid that I like don't want to live anymore in this moment. Like, no, like God is here. This is where I find God. You know, have you heard of holy yoga? Where Christians like do yoga, but it's like scripture. It's
Really?
it's like Christian yoga.
Okay.
I don't know, it makes me giggle. So I had been exposed to something like yoga before. Like it wasn't so traditional that it's like, don't go near yoga. But it was made Christian.
Right.
And so when I finally actually went to my first yoga class, that's when everything shifted, to be honest. Like, of course, it was a process, but I remember laying on a mat in a class in Portland and being like, the teacher said something like, this is your process, and if you need, you can just lay here the whole time. And I was like, that is the most foreign concept to me ever. Like, wait, this is mine? It sounds so simple. And I think from that moment, it was like also wrapped in the message of like, you're good. Like your essence is good. And that is the first thing that like jumped me out of the church, was like, wait a minute, I'm not inherently fucked up. Like I'm not bad at my core. That was the reason I left.
Wow. Okay, so your life started to like it kind of started to fall apart. It seems like from the inside out there was like this buildup of like 100%. I have a bad taste in my mouth about this life a little bit, but I'm gonna keep going because it's all that I know. And you're an overachiever, so I'm gonna keep going. That's who I am. And I feel like that is still true for you today. You're still an overachiever. You have an amazing big business.
But also I knew God in it too. Like that's what kept me in it. Like I knew a connection to God. It wasn't just like the external things of like, I'm going to keep playing the role.
Right.
It was also like, it was my foundation of how I know God now.
Yes. Okay. So you had strong beliefs. You had a strong foundation for like believing in and trusting in. Yes. Yes. All three of those things. So that's probably was your foundation for being able to catapult yourself into something else. So you kind of fell apart, almost got married, all of these things, started having new experiences, opening up, being
dated
willing
women
to open up.
for the first time.
Dated women for the first time. Just your world is just blossoming.
Magic.
And so then when did you, like, when did you tell your family?
About?
Just you.
Which part?
All of it. Like, they must have seen it.
Okay,
like, did you move out?
Well, there was a break. There was a point where it was like, I'm now separating. And that came after I moved out of the house.
Okay.
In with a friend.
Okay.
And she actually, though she was very much my mentor in the Christian church, was like, you have to get out. Like, there are some things here that are not adding up. Like, she gave me permission to leave. So then that's when I said to my parents, like, I'm not coming back to the church. I'm no longer a member here. But I was out of the house, so I feel like I had more liberty to just be like, fuck it. I get to do what I want. And that's when the yoga and everything began. My beloved first teacher, Lauren, and Sam, they took me into Costa Rica. And then after that, I was just like, I just stopped going to church. That was the biggest thing. I stopped going to church, started doing things like more non-traditionally, like yoga. And then there was a lot of questioning from my family. And I had to just put a line. I remember being like, you can no longer ask me about this. Like, stop. Like, they'd be like, are you, like, but, so are you going to church? Do you read the Bible still? Who's Jesus to you now? Like, da, 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 da. And I was like, I have to put a line here.
How did they respond?
I think for them, it was kind of like Kate's differentiating herself. Like, this was bound to happen at some point. But my brother was the wild one growing up, and I was like the good girl. And then in adulthood, we kind of switched. So like, he came back into the church, and I kind of like left and had my own epiphany. But I'm still the same Kate, even to them.
Yeah.
It's like,
that's the amazing part.
Right. I mean, it was rocky for a little bit. Like, I did take differentiation, like, needs to happen for children and at a way younger age. I didn't differentiate into my own person until I was 24.
When did you know you were psychic?
That was a very interesting conversation with my family. And even on my website, I say, like, I was dedicated at 8 months old to like change the world for God. That's a part of who I am. It feels like a part of my own soul contract in being here. And I agreed to this journey, which has been very interesting. I've always had a connection with God, but as far as stepping into the intuitive, unseen, energetic, psychic realm, I really had as gifts from God people that called me into my own gifting strongly. Like, I've done every job, and like, I am from a family of business owners, so I knew I always wanted to work for myself. Extremely entrepreneurial. I hate working for anyone else. It's my literal hell. So pandemic hit. We are in quarantine, and a friend's mutual friend was a coach, and I hired him. And 10 minutes into the call, he said, what are you doing with your life? Like, you are so gifted, and I see you teaching women, and they're paying you good money to do this, what he called soul coaching. That was his term. But very psychic. And so I had never heard of, like, done anything with tarot. Like, it was this whole new world. And I jumped in pretty quick. Like,
Of course you
quick.
did.
Like, from someone saying, I'm calling you into your own business, to like creating a logo myself on Canva, like the free version of Canva, and telling all other jobs I wasn't coming back after the quarantine was 6 weeks. Then I just started, and I was scared out of my mind. I kept pushing off my first clients. Be like, what? Like, ask this coach. I was like, what do I do? Like, in session, can you give me like a structure? And he's like, you just have to do it. Like, there's no replacing that. And then I did it. Formed an LLC. Lived at my parents' in their in-law apartment my first year of business. Talk about like, people are like, oh, but my family. I'm like, you don't even know. Like, try building something completely in opposition to what you've been brought up in, and live in that place and start bringing in clients and lighting incense and doing cards when like fear literally lives above your ceiling.
How did you not get lost in that?
So belief, if you've heard of strength finder tests, is my number one strength. So, and woo is my second. So I just remember at that point, when I started my business over 4 years ago, I had a 2 to 3 year journey, 2 year maybe.
Okay.
Things kind of happened pretty quick for me, of disconnecting from the church and really like deciding what my beliefs of God were.
Mm-hmm.
So once I had started my business, I was pretty like, no,
Yes.
I'm not doing that. I believe, this. And so when there was any like pushing up against, I was like full of fire. I got in one of the most heated conversations with my mother about who God is.
I really never thought about before hearing your story is that you still have a healthy relationship with God, and God is part of your work, but it is so much more. You have defined your beliefs yourself. And what was that like for you? Because I for everyone else, other people who are trying to leave the church and into something that they see truth in that's different from how they were raised, what's your advice on the okayness with redefining your beliefs and how and is that okay?
I don't really let people sit in the excuse and victimhood of like, I can't change it. I'm like, yes, you fucking can. You're choosing to not move, which sounds a little harsh, but like, ultimately, there's no permission needed. So I guess my advice is like, step out. Like, what's scary is good.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Like, that's it. I know it sounds simple, but like, and everyone has their own process. Like, have your process.
Yeah.
The process is beautiful. This didn't happen overnight for me.
So you can expect your life to kind of, I mean, air quote, fall apart. That's sometimes it needs to be in order to build it back up. But I think if you keep following your joy and your authenticity, it's like there's no way you won't be supported because that's what we're meant to do.
Yeah, I have had many tests, especially in my business, where I've come to that ironclad truth. Like, because I am doing the work of my soul and what I'm called to, I will always be supported.
Yes.
I've seen it like again and again and again and again, especially financially. Like, I've never had any other income from with this work. It's just been me doing this for 4.5 years and making that all work as a solo entrepreneur is a lot of trust.
Yeah.
But it's always come through, even when I'm like late on rent for a full month and then this next like business expense is coming up. It's like, it always works. Always. If you can sit in the discomfort of like what is happening in my whole world.
If it's uncomfortable, it's probably a good sign that you're in transformation.
Yeah, I fucking love it. I'm obsessed. And as I say it, the universe is probably going to like give me all these like hard things, which I feel I'm actually coming out of a season of that where it's like things are falling apart everywhere. Learn to be uncomfortable. As in like the process of leaving the church, the process of starting a business, the process of developing a new spiritual path that's outside of what you've known. Like, sit with uncomfortable things with yourself. And then see where that goes. It's an expanding of capacity that is a muscle and it grows.
I think it's okay not to know what comes next or the next version of yourself that's waiting.
Oh my God.
Because that's the best part. Then that means you are moving. If you don't know who you are and what's coming, the best part is getting to explore it. You know, and letting that open up. You can't control and plan.
Yeah, it's exciting.
There's nothing pre-written about it. You have to go live it.
It's like an exhilaration, and it's also like can be a doom feeling. All
right, so you get clear on what your soul, higher self, heart is saying first. If you're even having these inklings of like, how do I step into my own spirituality or redefine it for myself, you get more clear and listening to that inner voice.
You feel the nudge, and then you flow in that direction.
Right. You expect to feel uncomfortable. You kind of work on redefining those beliefs. That way you do have a foundation because the waves are going to start coming. Things might start falling apart before they rebuild. That's part of the process. You can expect that. The fear is just your inner self trying to protect you, but keep moving forward one step at a time.
And you know, the beauty is your soul's going to want it. It's not like, oh, like keep pushing against the fear. It's such a hard process. It's like, no, the reason you actually get where you want to go is because your soul is a yes with it. You're going to have that, like, it's a pull. It's like a desire. That's what keeps pulling you back into these new ways is like your soul, like leaning in. Yeah.
And then we can be like you and just be I don't know, discomfort junkies at time and understand the higher
I mean, if
perspective
you've
and
worked
keep
with me,
going
you
and
know
going
it.
and
Like,
going.
it's, like, I love getting into the nitty-gritty of things and letting the mess be the juice.
Yeah, I love it. Are you open to working with people who are looking for support in their
100%.
transformation in this type of
Yeah,
life?
and I even, like, as you say it, I can see, like, everyone I meet with, they're such a unique soul, and they're such a unique journey, and they've come into this life with such unique, like, experiences pre this.
What I really appreciate about your work, and especially on this topic, is that you've lived it. You've experienced this. You have that actual experience and can understand what someone is going through. And then on the greater levels of helping them step into higher alignment.
I'm obsessed with it.
I can tell. It's beautiful. It's powerful. It's so needed. Is there anything else that you want to add before we close?
I just was thinking of the story of the, like, I didn't tell you the story of, like, psychic, like, telling my family I was psychic.
Let's do it.
Actually, I was telling them that I was interested in more than just men. That's how it started.
Oh, okay.
And then my mom said, after I said it, because they'd met girlfriends of mine, but I never introduced them as my girlfriend. Like, I was closeted with them.
Okay.
Even into my business. But I remember telling them, and my mom was like, okay, good to know, but are you psychic? Like, that was her sticking point of, like,
really? She
sure,
came
you
out
can
with
be
it?
you can be into women. Like, we've known that actually for a while, but, like, are you a psychic? That was the sticking point.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, let's talk about this.
And you have a good relationship with them now.
I love my family.
Yeah, and I was actually at one of Kate's retreats, and her parents brought the food. Like, they're supportive of you.
And we've come, like I told you guys at the retreat, like, such a long way.
Yeah.
In 4.5 years. I mean, the tenet they come back to always is love. And so, whether there's a disagreement of belief, livelihood, lifestyle choices, like, the love is the rock.
So if you come from a family that is very strict, you have to develop an ability to hold space and view their journey as not
mutual
right or
respect.
wrong. It's okay. Yeah. Just like you would want, like, treat them the way you would want to be treated. It's not, I don't think it would end well if you left and then were mad at them for believing in what they believed in. You know,
and I have had seasons of anger.
Yeah.
Massive. Where I'm like, this is just, like, right, like, mad at the belief system, mad at how could they think this way?
Yeah.
How could the church think this way about sexuality? Or, like, you know, how could I be wrong?
Yeah.
If God created me and loves me, but I'm inherently wrong for liking outside of a heterosexual, you know, like, there's some righteous rage that I have there, but it's also just an understanding of where people are at.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of grace.
Yeah, we're all souls on our own journey, and it's okay to be exactly where you are, wherever you are, and it's okay to be different.
And it's okay to take a stand and be like, I don't agree with that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. So holding space for yourself, have the confidence to do what you want to do, and then also hold space for everyone else around you without judgment to believe in whatever they want to believe in. And then we can all coexist.
That's a nuance. That's a whole other conversation.
Maybe for next time. Kate, thank you so much. This journey is really precious and powerful, and I have learned from it. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, glad to share it here.
You can follow Kate at Kate More Intuitive on Instagram.
There are fake Kate More Intuitives, so just make sure you've got the real me.
She's got a whole bunch of followers, so that's the one. And thank you.
See you on the flip side.